Welcome back to round 5 of the Charlotte Legacy League 1K, where we have Jeskai Control versus Omni Sneak. Both players have kept 5 cards here, and Charles will be on the play. Charles leads off with the basic plains and Alluring Reveal to Island Cycle. We'll more than likely see him to go get a Volcanic Island here to round out his mana to have all 3 colors, but we'll see what he has here, because he does have a Alluring Revealed, not Alluring Revealed, but a 4th Air Lingus in his hand. Robert leads off with a Misty Rainforest, and he'll fetch as well, both players at 19. He did get that Volcanic, so he does have access to all 3 colors of mana here. We'll see how quickly Robert can move on his Omni Sneak deck. Robert's going to get a Volcanic Island as well. He's going to check up on some text messages and make sure the family's okay, and we'll go from there. So we'll see a Ponder coming from Robert. Top 3 cards, like he has a Cunning Wish, an Atraxa, and a Show and Tell. That's promising for him. He has a good start as well. We'll see a Volcanic Island here, and a Ponder from Charles as well. These blue matchups are very riveting when they cantrip the first couple turns. I can hardly contain myself when it's happening. We'll see a draw from Charles, and that'll be a Flooded Strand back over to Robert. Play his second card for turn, and let's see if he has any fast mana. He does not. Scalding Tarn for Robert, Brainstorm for Charles. We'll see a fetch here. More than likely going to get a Tundra, just so he doubles up on his white sources and his blue sources. And we may see a 4th Air Lingus here for 1, just to introduce the Monarch, get some pressure on the board. Omni Sneak decks can be very tough to beat once they've resolved one of their large creatures with a Show and Tell. A Narset is definitely something that does slow down Show and Tell deck if they are on Grizzlebrand, but the Atraxa, it doesn't work with the Atraxa. So we've got a Prismatic Ending, Force Negation, another Narset, and a Prismatic Vista. He's going to opt for the negation. Robert now knows that there is a little bit of competition there. He doesn't have the 3rd land, so he's going to draws the Cunning Wish. He knew that was on top. Let's see where he goes from here. He's thinking a little bit. Passes back. All right. A double Narset activation. It's going to be kind of tough. We probably will see the 4th Air Lingus here for 4, or for 2 total. 4 mana spent. And that will put 2 creatures on the board. Charles is going to dig 4 cards deeper. Another Prismatic Vista, Teferi, Swords of Plowshare, and it looks like a Prismatic Ending. Teferi is also a very good card here. Okay, Days Undoing, completely unprotected. That will reset Charles's hand, and Robert will be able to draw 1 card because of Narset. That will end the turn as well. So, no, that gets exiled. There you go. You found it. Well, it's graveyard. Close enough. We'll see Charles draw 7 cards, and that'll be the end of turn. Robert will pick up 1, and he'll go to his turn from here. All right. Maybe dodge the bullet on a Show and Tell there. So Robert does get to draw 1 card because he hasn't drawn a card that turn with Narset. Not quite sure what's going on here. Turn is over unless he's doing this during Robert's upkeep. And pondering. Okay, definitely got a misplay here. With Days Undoing, it ends the turn. So that's a misplay there. And should see finally the turn goes to Robert. He didn't get to draw his other card. We now have 3 mana, but I think he's going to have a ways to dig out of this. Charles to draw again with the Dress Down. Looks like he also has Force of Will, another Narset. Couldn't quite see what else was in his hand there at the moment. Lots of fetching in these decks, which is great fun. We now have 5 mana. Maybe we'll see a 4th Air Lingus or a Teferi come down. Looks like it's going to be a 4th Air Lingus now for 3, which put 3 knights into play. 1, 2, 3 knights. They all three have haste and trample. If he attacks and deals damage to Robert, he'll also introduce the monarch into the game at that point, which will allow Charles to draw, whoever controls the monarch, to draw a card at the end of turn. Robert's going to fetch at end of turn. Getting out of steam vents. Wonder why not go ahead and crack the other one to go ahead and thin a little bit more, unless he's looking for a brainstorm and then shuffle away. That may be what he's hoping for here. Brainstorm or ponder to get him back into this game. Not quite sure what that was. Pass back. We got a brainstorm from Charles. And he's pretty rolled up this game. It's going to be tough for Robert to come back. There's a total of 12 damage done now, plus 2 fetches. That puts him at 6 life. Amazing. Yep. No reason to play anything too egregious here. Show and tell. And alright, that's the end of game 1. We'll see you in game 2. Welcome to game number 2. Charles has kept 7, and Robert is going to mulligan down to 6. Robert will be on the play at this game, and we'll see how he leads off. He's got a fetch land, a brainstorm, a show and tell, and a Traxa. So that's pretty promising. So we'll see a fetch here, probably for Volcanic, since we didn't see any wastelands out of Charles's deck last game. And more than likely a cantrip as well to get his hand shored up. So if he leads on the brainstorm. Yeah, brainstorm, show and tell, cunning wish. Alright, chose to pass. We're going to see a ponder from Charles and a brainstorm in response. Did find some mana there. We'll see what he wants to put back. Wonder if he has a force of will for the to back up the show and tell he has in his hand. Charles finds a force negation. It looks like he has a force of will already in his hand as well, so he has double protection. So he's force of will, double Teferi 3, brainstorm, force negation, flooded strand, and another land. Alright, Obsidian Endures is very good. He doesn't have to worry about having any counter magic here, so that's promising. And he'll get that Atraxa out this coming turn as well. So 3 mana, he'll pay 2 life. Cast the show and tell unimpeded. Robert doesn't have anything he can put into play because it doesn't say planeswalkers. It's artifacts, enchantments, or creatures off of show and tell, or lands. So 3 mana, let's see the show and tell. And Robert puts his out. And we'll see a land more than likely come from show and tell on Charles's side. It's like a mountain. Taking a minute to think. Maybe he's going to brainstorm and try and find something that he can put into play off of the show and tell. I think you just put the land in play. Traxa comes in, reveal the top 10 cards, and he'll get to sort through those to see what he'd like to do next. Well, I can tell you he's going to want to do a show and tell and an Emrakul right off the bat. Omniscience is even better, because then he gets the next turn trigger as well. So Omniscience, Sorcery with the show and tell, and then instant force of will. Yeah, wow, he's got a pretty good hand there, and another Besiju Endures. Very strong card for this deck. That way it doesn't have to work around counter magic. It can just pay 2 life and play unimpeded. So we'll probably have to go to discard here based on hand size for Robert, but you can play his Lotus Petal, and looks like you have to put maybe 1 into the graveyard, maybe 2. Alright, puts the Misty in the graveyard and passes back to Charles. Charles will fetch at the end of his turn. Surprised he didn't want to brainstorm first before he fetched to see what was on top, to see if he had anything he could do to maybe slow this down. Maybe find a source to Plowshare or something like that. And shuffle away some cards that aren't as good in his hand. So he's going to have to be able to deal with an Emrakul, or he's going to deal with a 7/7, and he's going to deal with an Emrakul coming in off of an Omniscience, which can't be countered. Brainstorm from Charles. Lavinia is nice, but doesn't stop creatures. Only stops spells that can be cast with no mana. Pretty sure Lavinia cannot stop that. Let me double check here. Lavinia. Each opponent can't cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost greater than the number of lands they control. Whenever opponent casts a spell with no mana spent to cast it, counter that spell. So he can still cast the Emrakul through with the Omniscience. So the counter spells still don't do anything here against the Sageud Show and Tell into an Omniscience into an Emrakul cast, because Emrakul cannot be countered. We could potentially see a Teferi 3 come down here. He could also do a Day's Undoing, which will end his turn. Okay, so there's a Teferi to bounce the Atraxa, which is okay, but with the Annihilator trigger coming off of the Emrakul next turn, I think the Day's Undoing probably would have been better, just to make him have to shuffle his hand and put it back in. But he does have the Force of Will that he could have. I think he probably should have played the Day's Undoing here, knowing what Robert had in his hand, and then force back. So we should see a bounce of the Atraxa here, and then a draw, and then there's a Supreme Verdict, which doesn't really get him out of this, just because, again, the Emrakul off of the Omniscience, off of the Show and Tell, there's a double Emrakul, so that's game. We should see. Let's see what we see here. Potentially a sneak attack. I don't know why he would do that. But Show and Tell, putting in Omniscience. Alright, and then the Atraxa is nice, because it gives him another creature to play, or another creature to attack with when he takes an extra turn. Yeah, this game is pretty rolled up here. But we'll wait for the attack. Alright, Emrakul comes into play, trigger, he'll take an additional turn. Untap, takes his turn, and attacks for 22. That's the game 2. On to game number 3. Charles kept 6, Robert kept 5. Charles will be on the play in game 3, and he's going to lead off with a Scalding Tarn into more than likely a Volcanic Island or a Tundra. We'll see where he goes from here. It's going to be Volcanic Island. And I'm not sure if he has a cantrip in his hand or not, but more than likely he does. Yep, we'll see a Ponder come from Charles, drawing a Force of Will, a Dress Down, and a Brainstorm. All 3 of those cards are really good. If it were me, I'd probably take the Force of Will, knowing that maybe the Dress Down, just so he can pitch it to the Force of Will that's already in his hand. I don't think he drew his card off of Ponder there. He did not. Okay, great. Yep, so Dress Down off the top, Force of Will. He's pretty rolled up with some good counter magic here. It's just if he can get past the Beseiju, we'll see a Brainstorm. Brainstorm, Lavinia. Lavinia is nice. I guess he's not too worried about counter magic at the moment. Alright. I think I would have kept double force and put Lavinia on top. Just so he had double counter magic here. I guess he's thinking maybe the show and tell will allow him to put the... Oh, he didn't keep the dress down either. Lavinia doesn't help him in the way he thinks it does. Robert on tap. Brainstorm. Could go here. It doesn't look like he has all the pieces he needs at the moment. He has Lotus Petal. He does have the Brainstorm and a Force of Will. He could Brainstorm to try and find what he's looking for. With that, now Lavinia comes into play. That Ancient Tomb doesn't really help as much as he'd like. I think you have to force this just because it checks up on your own Force of Will here. I'm going to Brainstorm in response. I think, yeah, that's a Force of Will there. Alright, Lavinia is now in play. Intuition will, if he draws a land here, he's in pretty good shape. So, he has the land, so he can cast Intuition, getting an Emrakul. See, Robert probably... Well, he's going to cast Lotus Petal, which shouldn't happen. It should be countered by Lavinia. It's just a misplay on his part. It does not really matter just based on what he has in his hand. We'll see a show and tell here, which should put in the sneak attack if it goes uncountered. Charles only has a Force of Will and a Mountain in his hand, so no additional blue card to force with. I believe that the sneak attack is actually on top of the deck. We'll see an Emrakul come into play off the sneak attack and attack for 15. That'll be it. Thanks everyone for watching.